You guys, I created another channel. It's called Revealing the Crime, and I'm going to be looking at true crime cases, especially if I notice certain people have narcissistic tendencies. If this sounds interesting to you, stick around because I'm going to show you the very first upload right here. And if you'd like even more of this content, I will put a link to the new channel in the description. So sit back and I hope you like it. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Secrets in a murder investigation are like whispers in a crowded room. Sooner or later, someone hears them. Welcome to Revealing the Crime, where we uncover the stories behind the headlines, shedding light on the details that often go unnoticed. This is the story of the untimely passing of Gary Farris, a man known for his generosity, a family torn apart by secrets, and a discovery so shocking it sent ripples through their once idyllic world. As we go through the case, we will see the complex dynamics of narcissistic parenting and the long lasting effects it has on children. Before we begin, here's the intro. Welcome to Revealing the Narc. Join me as I highlight narcissistic traits in celebrities and public figures. Everything here is in my opinion and not professional advice. If you enjoy the analysis, please like and subscribe. Alpharetta, Georgia, a picturesque town known for its charm and close-knit community. But beneath the surface of this quiet life, one family story would take a chilling turn, leaving behind more questions than answers. Gary Farris was a well-respected attorney, a loving father, and a man deeply devoted to his family. His loved ones called him Big Daddy, a symbol of strength and support. But in July 2018, everything changed. On that fateful summer evening, Gary disappeared without a trace. His absence sent shockwaves throughout the community and left his family searching for answers. Where did he go? And is someone responsible for his disappearance? Gary was renowned for his generosity, often providing financial assistance to relatives in need. This benevolence, however, became a source of underlying tension among family members. He was the father of 4 grown children: Chris, Scott, Amanda, and Emily, and he was the husband of Melody Farris. But before we get into the details of these relationships, let's talk about the circumstances that led to his untimely passing. On July 3rd, Chris and his daughter went to the barn to look at animals. The barn was about 300 yards away from the main house. The following day, Chris returned to the farm and dropped off his daughter so she could have a sleepover with her cousin. The 2 girls went looking for their grandfather Gary, but they couldn't find him. It was a large property, and according to Chris, it wasn't uncommon that husband and wife wouldn't know each other's whereabouts. He was still gone the morning of July 5th, and he wasn't answering his phone. Amanda, one of Gary's daughters, arrives at the farm on the morning of July 5th and tells Chris over the phone that their dad is missing. The family speculated that perhaps he had gone to the office, but they noticed that his car was still at home. As the brothers and sisters began to gather at the farm, the youngest son, Scott, starts his search for his father. Scott, an Iraq war vet who lived in an apartment above the barn, was worried because he's thinking that perhaps his father had a heart attack. Scott checked a trail camera to see if there were any images of his father, but he didn't find any and he deleted the footage. At this point in time, Chris had arrived to the home and he jumps on his ATV driving around the large property. He sees Scott and Melody walking down toward the burn pile. This immediately reminded him that his father had said he was going to burn the burn pile on the 4th of July. So, for someone who doesn't live on a farm or has been around one, I was curious about a burn pile. So, it is a common thing on farms and is a place to burn branches and shrubs and other things. It's controlled and contained. When Scott and Chris started searching the burn pile, they found human remains and they knew that their father was gone. Soon the police arrived to do their investigation. They sat Melody down outside, and she began emphasizing that her husband wasn't a healthy individual. She mentioned he would have dizzy spells and feel faint sometimes, and that he was a smoker who did not exercise. She speculated he had some sort of health incident and fell into the fire. Let's talk about this a moment. When a loved one passes, the immediate reaction is usually shock, sadness, or confusion. But Melody, her first instinct was to list off all the reasons why Gary might have perished on his own. And not just any reasons. She immediately started talking about his poor health as if setting up an alibi before even anyone had accused her of anything. This is something we often see with individuals who have narcissistic or cluster B tendencies. I'll go into the specifics of this towards the end of the video. These individuals are not focused on the victim, they're focused on controlling the story. They want to guide how others see them, usually as innocent, reasonable, and even as the real victim of the situation. Melody's behavior followed a classic narcissistic playbook: deflection and justification. Instead of expressing grief, she immediately started making excuses for why Gary may have passed. This is a way to steer suspicion away from her before it even lands. There's a lack of genuine emotion, no devastation, no heartbreak, just a cool, calm, and almost rehearsed demeanor. There's controlling the narrative. Narcissists hate looking like the bad guy. So rather than mourning her husband, Melody tried to shift the focus to why this wasn't her fault without anyone even blaming her yet. This kind of reaction isn't just cold, it's calculated. And if you've ever dealt with a narcissist, you know exactly how they operate when they think they're losing control. Now let's get back to the story. When Gary's remains were first found, it was thought that he had an accidental passing, but further examination revealed otherwise. A critical turning point in the investigation was the discovery of a bullet lodged in Gary's rib, indicating he had been hit with a bullet before his body was burned. The police soon focused on Melody Farris as the primary suspect. The couple's marriage had been strained since 2009 due to Melody's extramarital affair, and they had not fully reconciled. Additionally, Melody stood to benefit from a $2 million life insurance policy upon her husband's passing, providing a potential financial motive. Further evidence emerged that Melody was involved in another extramarital affair with Roy Rusty Barton, and this was a focal point during the investigation and trial. Initially, Melody denied any ongoing relationship with Barton, claiming it had ended a year prior to her husband's passing. However, investigators discovered that this was untrue. She maintained active communication with Barton up until Gary's passing. Following Gary's passing, Melody was found with Barton in Tennessee, further contradicting her earlier statements about the relationship's termination. This led to her arrest for providing false information to the authorities. In a significant piece of evidence, authorities intercepted a communication in which Melody informed Barton that Gary was on a burn pile, suggesting her involvement in concealing her husband's passing. Additionally, Melody used Gary's credit card to pay for a secret phone bill and made a $450 purchase at Walmart the following day. These indicate her attempts to conceal her activities. The specific items that Melody may have purchased from Walmart are suspicious. According to a Reddit discussion, the receipt included Clorox, though the exact type, whether it was liquid or wipes, was not specified. Another source suggested that the purchase consisted of groceries, including cleaning products, which is common in regular shopping trips. However, the exact details of the purchase have not been fully disclosed. Walmart's records were instrumental in confirming that Melody was the one who made this transaction. The timing and nature of this purchase were scrutinized during the investigation as they occurred shortly following Gary's passing. The inclusion of cleaning products led to speculation about their potential use in concealing evidence related to the crime. These revelations about Melody's affair with Barton, along with the evidence she attempted to hide, played a crucial role in the prosecution's case against her. In 2019, Melody was arrested and charged. During the trial, the prosecution presented extensive evidence, including crime scene photographs, digital records, and testimonies from 36 witnesses. One of the most shocking events that occurred during the trial was evidence that Martha Jane Barton, who is both Melody's second cousin and the stepmother of Melody's lover, Roy Barton, testified about a missing firearm. She revealed that the .38 had disappeared from her Tennessee home sometime after Melody's arrest in 2019, Given that Melody had frequent and unrestricted access to Martha Jane's residence, there was speculation that she might have taken the weapon without Martha Jane's knowledge. This missing firearm was significant because a .38 caliber bullet was found lodged in Gary's rib, suggesting a potential connection to Gary's passing. This testimony added a crucial piece of evidence to the prosecution's case, linking Melody to the potential weapon and further implicating her in her husband's passing. Throughout the trial and sentencing, Melody accused her son, Scott, of committing the crime, claiming she had concealed his involvement for years. Her defense attorney presented evidence suggesting Scott's possible culpability, including the presence of a .38 caliber ammunition matching the one found at the crime scene. Despite these claims, the court dismissed the allegations against Scott. The jury deliberated for several days before finding Melody guilty of all charges. She was subsequently sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 30 years, and received additional concurrent sentences for concealing the death and making false statements. The reason I wanted to bring you this story is because of Melody's behavior during the sentencing. While facing life in prison, Melody didn't show remorse. Instead, she lashed out, pointing the finger at her own son, Scott. Witnesses in the courtroom reported that Melody accused Scott of injuring his father and even implied that the missing firearm was tied to him. Despite the evidence convicting her, she maintained that Scott was responsible, allegedly claiming, "Scott was the one with anger issues, not me. It was his ammunition, wasn't it? Why isn't anyone looking at him? This family wouldn't be torn apart if he hadn't done this." And yet, through Melody's tirade, Scott remained in the courtroom, silently enduring the blame being placed squarely on his shoulders. In my opinion, based on what I've been watching and reading about Melody Farris, her manipulation, lack of accountability, bending of the truth or lying, and the dramatic outburst against her son during sentencing are strong indications that she exhibits traits consistent with cluster B personality disorders. Specifically, her behavior aligns with narcissistic traits, such as blame shifting, self preservation at others' expense, and a lack of empathy, and potential antisocial traits, deceitfulness, disregard for others, and calculated self interest. Let's break this down even further. Cluster B includes narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder. Characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder include grandiosity, entitlement, lack of empathy, and a need to maintain a perfect image, often at others' expense. Melody's blame shifting onto her son, her refusal to take accountability, and her possible motive, which was the financial gain from Gary's life insurance policy, suggests strong narcissistic traits. Characteristics of antisocial personality disorder include a pattern of disregard for the rights of others, deceitfulness, manipulation, and a lack of remorse. Melody's calculated actions are indicative of antisocial personality disorder. This disorder often overlaps with sociopathy and psychopathy, terms that I'll discuss shortly. I also want to go into borderline personality and histrionic personality disorder. Characteristics of borderline personality disorder include instability in relationships, impulsivity, and intense fear of abandonment. While there's no strong evidence of impulsivity or abandonment issues in Melody's case, her dramatic accusations against Scott might suggest a tendency to destabilize relationships. Histrionic personality disorder includes the characteristics of excessive attention seeking and emotionality. Melody's courtroom outburst might have been a bid for attention, but there's not enough evidence to label her as histrionic, in my opinion. Sociopathy and psychopathy are typically classified under antisocial personality disorder, which is part of the cluster B group. While sociopathy and psychopathy are not official diagnoses in the DSM-5, there are commonly used terms to describe specific types of antisocial behavior. Sociopaths are often impulsive, volatile, and prone to emotional outbursts. They may form emotional attachments but still exhibit a lack of empathy and a disregard for rules. Melody's possible emotional manipulation of her son aligns with sociopathic tendencies, as does her impulsive decision to injure Gary and cover it up. Psychopaths are more calculating and cold, often showing a complete lack of empathy, remorse, or emotional attachment. They plan their actions carefully and are often socially charming. If Melody meticulously planned the events in this story, she might exhibit psychopathic traits. However, her courtroom outbursts suggest more impulsivity, leaning her closer to sociopathy, in my opinion. Let's talk about a couple of key indicators of Melody's personality traits. She shows a lack of remorse. Her refusal to accept accountability for Gary's passing, even after conviction, highlights a lack of guilt or empathy. She displayed calculated actions. Disposing of his body and attempting to cover up the crime indicate forethought and self preservation. And she had dramatic outbursts. Her tirade in court is consistent with Cluster B's emotional and erratic tendencies. Let's pause for a moment to think about Scott. Imagine the impact of hearing your own mother, someone who should protect and nurture you, accuse you of this horrible crime in front of a crowded courtroom. Growing up with a parent who may exhibit traits from the Cluster B spectrum often means enduring manipulation, blame shifting, and emotional neglect. For Scott, this public humiliation was likely the culmination of years of emotional harm. In families where a parent exhibits narcissistic traits, children are often cast into roles like the golden child or the scapegoat. The golden child is idealized, while the scapegoat is blamed for everything that goes wrong. Melody's accusations suggest she viewed Scott as the scapegoat. By deflecting blame onto him, she sought to preserve her own image, even in the face of overwhelming evidence against her. The long term effects of being the scapegoat in a narcissistic family are severe. They can include low self esteem. Constant blame leads to feelings of inadequacy. They can lead to chronic guilt. Even when they're not at fault, scapegoats often feel responsible for their parents' problems. They may have difficulty trusting others. Betrayal by a parent can make it hard to trust in other relationships, and there could be emotional trauma. Hearing these accusations, especially in such a public setting, can leave scars that take years, even decades, to heal. But there's hope. People like Scott can heal by seeking therapy, finding supportive communities, and learning to set boundaries with toxic individuals, even if they are family members. Understanding that the parent's behavior reflects their disorder and not the child's worth is a crucial first step. Melody's actions in the courtroom were the ultimate display of a lack of accountability, a hallmark of Cluster B personality disorders. While we can't undo the damage caused by such toxic behavior, we can continue to shed light on these patterns and support those who have endured. I want to thank you for joining today. If you found this video insightful, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Together, we can raise awareness and empower others to overcome the challenges of toxic relationships. I want to thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all soon. Goodbye.